Hi, I'm Sugar Ray. You're watching Dante Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So one of the headlines read, Olympic boxing corruption alive and well, according to one of the senior officials of the Olympic Boxing Games. You know, this is pretty ironic because I did a video, I think yesterday or the day before, and I was pretty much giving you guys a summary and a review of what's already taken place in the Olympics, especially when it comes to the American boxers. Now, in that video, I told you guys that there was a Russian fighter by the name of Vladimir Nikitin, and he had went up against a Thailand fighter. Now, this guy, he's a bantamweight, so he's in Shakur Stevenson's division. So this Russian guy, he goes up against a Thailand fighter by the name of Chachai Booty, and this Thailand fighter is completely dominating the Russian fighter. Now, Booty is a southpaw, and he had a style that was a little reminiscent of Manny Pacquiao. He was using great foot movement, and he was killing this guy from the outside with left hands over and over and over again. And he was making the Russian look very flat-footed, very slow. Long story short, the Thailand fighter, he won every single round. And once the decision was announced, to everyone's surprise, they had the Russian fighter winning the fight 3 rounds to 0. And I was like, wow, that was a robbery. And it's so crazy because when I was watching this, I'm trying to get a gauge of all of these fighters in the bantamweight division, because I know that Shakur Stevenson may have to face one of these guys, right? So when I'm looking at the Thailand fighter, you know, originally going into this fight, the natural inclination is the Russian guy. He's going to most likely win because, you know, the Eastern European fighters and the Cuban fighters, they already have that type of reputation. But once again, to my surprise, the Thailand fighter completely dominated him. So after being impressed with the Thailand fighter's ring generalship, his foot movement, his speed, reflexes, the great left hand, after watching this impressive performance, once again, I'm already picturing how a Shakur Stevenson versus Chachai Booty fight would actually play out. And while I'm trying to picture this fight in my head, to my dismay, all of a sudden, the judges announced the winner, and they end up raising the Russian guy's arm. And it was such a shock to me and everyone in the crowd. Now, I had noticed some suspicious decisions prior to this one, but not as blatant as this one was. So you have the Russian fighter getting a gift decision over the Thailand fighter, all right? Now, the Russian fighter, his next opponent is against an Irish fighter named Michael Conlan. Now, this fight played out a little bit different than the Russian's last fight against the Thailand fighter. This fight was more of a brawl, toe-to-toe. You had both fighters going toe-to-toe, but by the second round, clearly Michael had taken over the fight, and he was landing 3 to 5 punches to maybe 1 or 2 of the Russian's punches. So I'm sitting over here, and once again I'm saying, oh man, this is an upset. You don't expect the Irish fighter to beat the Russian fighter. Once again, to my surprise, the referee raises the Russian guy's arm again, right? Now, after this robbery, this is when the news started to spread internationally. And you see all of these stories and articles of corruption and robberies in the boxing Olympics. Now, keep in mind, this Russian Vladimir Nikitin versus Michael Conlan fight, this happened only about an hour before the Gary Russell fight, where Gary Russell goes up against an Uzbek fighter, a fighter from Uzbekistan. Now, it's so crazy because watching some of the Uzbekistan fighters that have been very impressive throughout this tournament. Matter of fact, 2 of the Uzbekistan fighters actually eliminated 2 of the American fighters from the contest or from the tournament, which is Antonio Vargas. He was beat by an Uzbek, and Nico Hernandez was as well. So when I seen them lose to an Uzbekistan fighter, I said, boy, this is going to be an uphill battle for Gary Russell, because I was still looking at Gary Russell's first performance, which did not look that impressive. So I'm thinking to myself, him going up against one of these Uzbekistan fighters is going to be an uphill battle. Man, to my surprise, Gary Antoine Russell, he put on one of the best performances against this Uzbekistan fighter. Matter of fact, it was interesting because at first you can see the Uzbekistan fighter, he tried to test Gary Russell by meeting Gary Russell in the center of the ring. But with Gary Russell's quick ass right jab and his reflexes and him being able to catch the Uzbek fighter with quick left hands, all of a sudden the Uzbek fighter, he switched it up and he got on his bicycle and he just kept moving and moving and moving. Now, you know, a lot of times in the Olympics when you see fighters constantly move, they're able to set up punches and land a couple shots every now and then and get back on their bicycle, right? Like basically doing a drive-by. But with Gary Russell, because Gary Russell was so much quicker than this guy, he was so much more accurate than this guy, it got to the point to where the Uzbek fighter, all he could really do was move around the ring. He would try to exchange, but he would miss a lot of punches, and it was only Gary Russell Jr. that was landing. By the second round, it got so bad to where the Uzbek fighter, he wasn't even really throwing any punches back anymore. There was very little resistance from the Uzbekistan fighter, and Gary Russell, he was just taking over the fight. He was landing beautiful body combinations, finishing up top, and every now and then the Uzbek fighter, he would throw like 1 or 2 jabs, and a lot of times they wouldn't even land. It just got to it looked kind of like Oscar De La Hoya against Trinidad in those dreadful last 3 rounds, where Oscar De La Hoya, he wasn't punching anymore, he was just moving around the ring. This is pretty much what the Uzbekistan fighter was doing. So even though Gary Russell was dominating the entire fight, I knew that Gary Russell was in trouble after the first round, because Gary Russell, he clearly won the first round. And when I seen the judges' scorecards, all 3 judges had the Uzbek fighter winning that first round. I said, oh man, Gary Russell's in trouble. So the second round, Gary Russell's father, who could see the scorecards, he yelled out to Gary, hey man, they got you down after the first round, you got to pick it up. So that's exactly what Gary Russell does. Gary Russell, he comes out in the second round even more aggressive, leaving absolutely no doubt who won that round. After that round, once again, they show the judges' scorecards. All 3 judges had the Uzbekistan fighter winning the fight. From that point on, I said, oh, okay, it's nothing Gary Russell can do. They already made up their mind before this fight had even started. So long story short, you guys already know how the story concludes. They robbed Gary Russell and they give the fight to the Uzbekistan fighter. I'm going to tell you guys right now, all 3 of those fights that I just mentioned were some of the worst decisions in Olympic history. These were terrible decisions. And like I said before, the results and the controversy of these decisions was heard around the world. Matter of fact, once again, these controversial decisions were so blatant that even one of the Olympic senior officials had to take a stand, and he talked about the corruption in the Olympic boxing. In fact, this official is so fed up with the corruption that he is calling for the resignation of AIBA's president and the executives. That's how serious these robberies have become. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and read a part of this article and quote exactly what this senior had to say. This was an article on theguardian.com. Here's what the writer reported. The senior official who went public with fears of deep-rooted corruption in Olympic boxing has claimed a string of controversial decisions show it is, quote, alive and well, and called for urgent action by AIBA, the amateur sports governing body, amid furious scenes around the ring in Rio. Now, this is what the senior official had to say. Quote, as predicted, the corruption is alive and well, and the decisions speak for themselves. It is clear that AIBA will not do anything about this. It is time now for the IOC to step in, insisting that amateur boxing is so rotten that only the removal of AIBA's president, C.K. Wu, all of his administration, and all of the officials at the Olympics would cut it out. President Wu needs to resign, as well as the executive director and the senior staff. Every referee and judge and international technical official needs to be suspended. That's the only way it's going to change. Boy, now that is some serious disclosure right there. That is extremely revealing. You guys ever watch those movies where you have the main character who has this perfect life, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he finds out everything in his life, everything he's been told, everything is just one big ass lie, right? Guys, that's exactly how this AIBA situation sounds right now when you listen to how this senior official just broke it down for us. What this official just confirmed is, in a way, boxing fans' worst nightmares, which is these horrendous decisions that we've seen in the last couple of days have been extremely deliberate. Now, don't get me wrong, we all speculated that was the case, but you have an insider that is confirming it. That changes the entire dynamic. This official just said right now, the president of AIBA, all of the executives, we need to cut it. That's basically what he said. We need to cut it. So with that all being said, I really feel bad for all of these fighters that were robbed of a gold medal or a silver medal, whatever the case may be. But what really bothers me the most when it comes to this whole situation is the lack of unity in America. Someone in my comment section, I forgot his name, but he used the acronym instead of USA, it's DSA, which is the Divided States of America. I thought that was pretty clever because that is exactly what we are. We are a divided nation. The fact that Gary Russell, who is fighting for our country, he represents our country just like the military does. And when this man is openly, blatantly robbed, there are no articles about Gary Russell Jr. being robbed. Only articles are Gary Russell loses by split decision, as if it was justified, as if there was no robbery, no harm done here, right? Because Gary Russell Jr. is on the coincidental list. you guys have to understand something. This is the Olympics, okay? This is not the Golden Gloves. This is not the Silver Gloves. This is not the World Champions. This is the biggest tournament in the world, okay? The Olympics is the biggest tournament in the world. So this is a big damn deal when it comes to a fighter being robbed. I can guarantee you when it comes to the Irish fighter, Michael Collin, I can guarantee you when it comes to the Thailand fighter, Chachai Butdi, I can guarantee you they're getting an enormous amount of support from their country when it comes to a robbery of this magnitude, right? Now, what's so backwards in America is, now let it be Manny Pacquiao, who's not even American. Let Manny Pacquiao lose a close decision to Tim Bradley, and it's the worst decision in the world. Articles left and right, Manny Pacquiao was robbed, worst decision. Jim Lampley is working overtime, doing additional shows dedicated to defending Manny Pacquiao's honor. Hell, the sad thing is, they treated Tim Bradley like he was the foreigner. That's how it is in the DSA. You have all these other international websites that are talking about these robberies. And yet, when it comes to American boxing websites, they don't even care. Because to them, it's just another coincidental list fighter. So who gives a damn if he got robbed or not? This is how they see you when you're on that list. But at least, hell, the senior official, at least he's telling the public the truth. At least he's telling the public where the problem is and what we need to cut out. So at the end of the day, once again, if our country would put pressure on the corruption like everyone else is, it would be a major contribution to the cause. So anyway, with me saying all of that, this same Russian fighter that got 2 gift decisions, guess who he's fighting next? He's fighting Shakur Stevenson. And I'm telling you guys right now, after what I've seen, at least skill-wise, I can't speak for the judges, but skill-wise, Shakur Stevenson, he should dominate this guy pretty easy. Like I said, this Russian guy, he's very flat-footed. He throws looping, slow punches. There's no way he stands a chance against Shakur Stevenson. The only thing I wonder is, how is Stevenson going to fare against those damn judges? That's where the real challenge lies for Shakur Stevens, and it's a damn shame. When it comes to just the boxing aspect, the only challenge for Shakur Stevenson, and I believe if the judges do what they're supposed to do, we're going to get to see a hell of a gold medal match, and that is going to pin Shakur Stevenson versus the 2012 gold medalist, the Cuban Robeisy Martinez. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name, but Martinez against Stevenson, that is going to be an epic battle with the combination of rhythm, slickness, ring generalship, speed, defense, special effects. All of that combined, you have a hell of a gold medal match. So that should be one to see. But once again, we got to find out if these judges going to do the right thing. And that is no guarantee. I can almost see, and I hope that I'm wrong, but man, I can almost see a Roy Jones type of controversy. When Roy Jones lost to, I believe it was Korea, if they rob Shakur, it will be reminiscent of that. And I am telling you right now, somebody is seriously on the payroll when it comes to some of these Russian fighters and Uzbekistan fighters getting these decisions. You know what, before I wrap this up, let me go ahead and quote what some of the fighters had to actually say they were actually robbed. Let me go ahead and quote what Michael Conlon from Ireland had to say about his loss to the Russian fighter. They're fucking cheats. They're known for being cheats. Amateur boxing stinks from the core right to the top. I'll never box in this competition again. If people watch this Olympic Games and they see some of the decisions, I think boxing is dead. It's about whoever pays the most money. Whoever has the biggest influence wins. End quote. Ooh, that's deep. Man, that is deep. Now the USA head coach, Billy Walsh, he had a lot more to say than that. And it's funny because I just told you guys that if they rob Shakur Stevenson, it'll be very reminiscent of the Roy Jones situation in 1988. Coincidentally enough, Walsh, he actually compared these Olympics to 1988. Let me quote what he had to say. We wonder why we are out here working our socks off trying to get our guys ready. They give us the rules and we try to get our guys to adhere to those rules and then fight in that fashion, and then we do and we don't get it. It's the worst game since 1988 when Roy Jones got robbed in the final. That is pretty damn big. Because all of the Olympic Games that we've had since '88, no one has compared any of the games to 1988 till now. So that just tells you about the obvious corruption that's taken place this year in the Olympics. Now, Walsh, he also claimed Uzbekistan boxers were being favored. Another USA coach told TheGuardian.com, quote, I'm starting to believe they are doing something. It's disgusting, end quote. Well, hopefully with all this exposure, there'll be a proper investigation and something will be done about this matter. Now, with my son being a boxer and being a 4-time champion and a 2-time national champion, I see robberies all the time. I mean, it's been a couple times where my son was robbed, where he won every single round. And because my son, he has, these natural reflexes where he has this great defense, he'll win fights and never even get touched, and he'll be the only person landing clean shots. And he'll be standing right in front of his opponents and avoiding all of their punches. And there's been times where he got robbed. But of course, when it comes to the local and the national level, robberies are far more common. But on the biggest amateur stage, there's no way we should be dealing with this type of irresponsibility. Or maybe I should say, this type of corruption. These fighters, they train their entire lives to fight for a gold medal. And for you to just take that away and give it to the highest bidder, people that are willing to take away these kids' dreams just for personal financial gain, should obviously be removed from this sport, and they should never have another position pertaining to boxing at all. That is sickening. Something else I thought about, how crazy is it that originally, because of the excessive use of PEDs, the Russian team was supposed to originally be banned from the 2016 Olympics. And for some reason, we don't even know why, but for some reason, at the last minute, AIBA decided to allow some of the Russians to participate in the games. Now, the Russian powerlifting team and a couple other teams, they were completely banned. But for whatever reason, they allowed the Russian boxers to participate. And for those of you guys who don't know this, because a lot of people, they keep this, on the hush, but Vitaly Klitschko, the reason why Vitaly Klitschko didn't participate in the Olympics like his brother Vladimir Klitschko did is because Vitaly Klitschko, he failed a drug test and tested positive for PEDs. Okay? So when it comes to these Eastern European countries, this is something that goes back quite some time. And now coincidentally, you have a Russian fighter like Vladimir Nikitin, who for some reason is receiving a lot of special attention and a lot of help as well when it comes to these fights. So speaking of the Russian fighter, he'll be fighting Shakur Stevenson this Thursday. Clarissa Shields, she'll be fighting on Wednesday. And also the Cuban, he'll be fighting the same day as Shakur Stevenson, Robiesi Ramirez. Those should be two really good fights to watch. So tune in. That fight should be on NBCSN on Thursday. Okay? So I'm not sure what time. Just check your TV guide when it comes to that. That's pretty much all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.